Thank you all for coming and welcome you to our Botany 360 about college level introductory botany textbooks, approaches, etc. I'm Rachel Jabaily, and I'm an associate professor at Colorado College, which is an undergraduate serving institution. And I am the author with a student on the Biology of Plants Coloring textbook, which is an open educational resource. And I am genuinely thrilled to be here with my friend and colleague, Dr. Ken Cameron, the president of the Botanical Society of America, who is the author of the new update to the Raven Biology of Plants textbook. So Ken and I are going to fresh air on NPR, Terry Gross the situation, kind of interview each other for a little bit about our two book projects and give then time for you all to ask us questions. And then we'll go into breakout rooms so you all can talk to each other about your experiences teaching college level botany, textbooks you're using, updates you've had to make across time, et cetera, et cetera. Does that sound good to everybody? Cool.
Sounds good to me.
All righty. Okay. So, Ken and I have known each other a very long time, and this is really special to be together. I was actually the graduate student on the hiring committee for Ken Cameron when we got him as the director of the herbarium at Wisconsin-Madison, where I was a graduate student. And our paths have crossed so much. My first faculty position was at his alma mater, Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee. And we're both serving on the botany board, the BSA board today together. So Ken, I'm going to have you launch into
All
your
right.
presentation, if that sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I just wanted to remind everybody here a couple things. Number one, I hope you're a member of the Botanical Society of America. We're doing such great things, and we're really trying to broaden our outreach. And this particular series, Botany 360, if you haven't participated in one previously, came about when we realized that 5 days of the year we come together in at our annual meeting. Of course, we're going to be in Tucson shortly. But the other 360 days of the year, we want to remain connected to each other, and there's so much we can do to share. So Botany 360 was born out of this idea of keeping the momentum rolling throughout the entire calendar year, not just at the annual meeting. So thank you for joining us. And I won't talk too long, just to show a screenshot here from the registrar's office at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I'm a full professor. I'm also director of the state herbarium. I also serve as chair of the conservation biology major, and I'm your BSA president. But I teach general botany, Botany 130. I teach that every year. We offer it in both the fall and spring semesters, and we generally get around 175 students each semester. So nearly 350 students are being trained in this four majors course, general botany. And I've been doing that here at Madison for 18 years, but prior to that, I was at the New York Botanical Garden, and I taught on the faculty of Sarah Lawrence College for 10 years. Before that, I was at a small liberal arts college called Guilford College in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I've also taught general botany in the form of a correspondence course for continuing studies for adults who needed some credits. A lot of those were fish and wildlife officers and people like that. So I've taught general botany in many different flavors to many different audiences, from small colleges to large public institutions. And it's one of the courses that I love the most. Next. And so I think many of you are familiar with the Raven Biology of Plants textbook. That's what we use here at Madison. It was first published by Peter Raven and Helen Curtis in 1970, so it has a long track record. And I'm sure you recognize the cover art. We've traditionally always selected a Van Gogh painting. And it's the best-selling botany textbook now for over 50 years. It outsells all other botany textbooks combined. There's a number of outstanding textbooks on the market. I don't want to, I'm sorry that I'm tooting my own horn here, but I've used all of them and I still keep coming back to Raven. I really love this book. Um, Next. And so it was a great honor for me when Ray Evert, who's been the co-author of the text since the second edition, asked if I would be willing to take over the book for a ninth edition. Ray was a member of the faculty at UW-Madison Botany. He just passed away a few months ago, just a few months before Peter Raven himself passed away. But he will remain a co-author. We call Ray and Susan Eichhorn legacy authors because of their important contribution in the prior editions. And I worked a little bit with them. Macmillan Publishing is now the publisher. It's gone through different publishers over the years. And, we spent a lot of time deciding which Van Gogh painting to choose. And our users, many of them insisted, please keep the tradition of the Van Gogh paintings. So we selected this one. It has a nice blue and green palette. It's olive groves from the south of France. And I will tell you that the book is finished. We're in the final page proof stages. And the ebook version should be ready for review within the next couple of months. It's going to be too late for the fall semester, of course, because that's right around the corner, but people should get previews very soon. Next slide. And I do want to emphasize that we've made a big change in publishing, as you know, toward electronic textbooks. So primarily, students will access Raven's Biology of Plants through an ebook. Macmillan has a really outstanding platform called Achieve that's built into Canvas and other kinds of learning platforms. The students automatically get that. It's cheaper than it would be in hard-bound paper form, but it's still an expensive textbook. But it really allows students to explore the book in new and innovative ways that I think resonate more with that generation. I also want to make a point that because it is in an electronic form, accessibility is of paramount concern. And so some of the new Americans with Disability Acts laws that are going into place next year have been taken into account in terms of figure captions and color format and language and so forth. So that's all built in. And Macmillan has had a really strong track record in ensuring that textbooks are fully accessible to everyone. Next slide. I just took a screenshot of my Excel spreadsheet. Writing this book has been a real eye-opener for me. I don't know how it was done in the old days, but it's a real team effort. Macmillan had probably 6 different editors assigned to me, as well as artists and an art editor, people whose job is solely to go through the text and think about DEI issues and use of language. And so we had to keep everything very well organized and on schedule. So a couple of big things, I guess, for those of you who are familiar with the text. In the second and third columns, it says 9th edition chapters and 8th edition chapters. I decided to reorganize the text quite heavily, partly because when we start the project, we ask users to fill out a survey and give some feedback of what they like and what they don't like. And many of them, and I agreed with them, felt that the way they tend to teach the course is kind of a bottoms up. So starting with the plant cell, then moving into building the plant organ, the bodies, then going into function out of form, so plant physiology, then moving into genetics, and before we get to evolution and diversity with ecology at the very end. The previous editions had those chapters kind of scrambled up. And I don't know, the way I teach it and I co-teach it with other faculty, this um, layout seemed more logical to me, especially if you divide it in half, kind of cellular, molecular, anatomy, physiology, and then diversity, evolution, systematics, ecology in the second half. So that's one big change. Next slide. But of course, when you're revising or editing an edition of a well-known, beloved textbook, you have to be very careful not to change too much, right? It's kind of like I was thinking about this. If you're into the Avengers movies or something, some of these Marvel films, and they're on like number 5, number 6, number 12, number 13. There's got to be continuity through all of those different versions and different editions. So the real challenge for me as the author now was to maintain the consistency, but make enough changes that it feels different, right? So some obvious things that pop out when you eventually get a hold of this, the color layout is all changed. There's a beautiful new color scheme. Um, every chapter has been carefully scrutinized. I was instructed by the publisher that for every sentence I add of new content, I have to remove an equal amount of old content, which is quite a challenge because a textbook, what do you remove out of a textbook? So that required a lot of thought. But basically, every chapter is laid out. It starts out with an outline of what the students can expect, and these are all hyperlinked in the e-book now. You'll see from this chapter on gymnosperms that I'm really putting a lot of emphasis on orders of plants, kind of more of a bottom up, thinking about orders and classes and then phyla rather than it was always presented more as phyla and divisions and then breaking them down. Also at the beginning of each chapter, as you'd expect, are some checkpoints, like what can the students expect to get out of this particular chapter? And then next slide. And then at the very end, there's always a chapter summary that kind of pulls out all the main points from that particular chapter. I know if I was a student cramming for an exam, I'd probably just read those last several pages of the summary. It's kind of like the Cliff Notes version of the chapter, but we put a lot of focus on that. There's often a summary table at the end that kind of pulls a lot of information together. Next slide. And then there's always questions for the students to kind of challenge themselves. The answers to the odd question. So we have, like, this particular example has 6. We only provide answers to the even numbered questions, and then the odd number, they can look those up. But then the odd questions, they kind of have to, they can't cheat. They actually have to think about them a little bit more carefully. But then also, I guess I wanted to mention that in the e-book, there are lots of supplementary tools. There's videos, there's self-question quizzes, and then a lot of ancillary materials for the instructors as well. Next slide. So, a lot of people have written to me and said, I hope you're not changing the life cycles. We love those life cycles in the Raven book. None of the life cycles have been changed, except to clarify some things that I thought were kind of misleading over the years that I've noticed students confused about. Yeah, there were a couple errors in some of the figures over many years that just got perpetuated. So they've been tidied up, but otherwise the life cycles are all there. I know some people think that the chapters on fungi and algae are not needed in a botany textbook, but I disagree and feel that botany as an umbrella discipline needs to include fungi and algae and bacteria. So those are still there. They've been greatly expanded because our knowledge of fungi and algae has increased so much. And I just think, a lot of students, this is the only exposure they'll get to some of those organisms. So those are still in there. Next slide. Of course, this textbook is well known for lots of beautiful photographs and detailed drawings and so forth. Those are all still in there, but I did make a real conscious effort to basically modernize some of the images. So, for example, this one on the far left that shows the ovulate pine cones, that used to be a black and white figure. I mean, it looked like it was taken in 1942 or something. And I just thought, we can do better. So almost all of the black and white photography has been replaced with color um, and a lot of improved figures. Next slide. And then there's a lot of new material as well. Some of this is classic, like the figure on the left showing water potential. That is discussed in great detail in the chapter on water relations, but there was never a figure that actually showed water potential value, hypothetical values, and the pathway of water through the plant body. So this is a new figure that's been added, for example, just to improve the text. On the right is a figure showing a genome map. And that's just as a reminder to myself that in the chapter on biotechnology, there's now an entirely new section on genomics, CRISPR-Cas technology. All of that has been updated quite a bit. Next slide. Yeah, so that's just kind of a preview of what's coming. Again, in the next few months, the publisher, Macmillan, should start publicizing the book, I think, pretty soon. And I'm really excited. It's been a challenge. It's kept me on my toes pretty much every day for the past year, but it's finally coming to fruition. And I was really happy that I was able to talk to Peter Raven about this 6 months ago and before he passed away. And he was really excited as well to see his legacy carried forward in this well-known textbook. Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. Oh, yes, let's give some emoji love for that. This is so exciting to
You know,
see.
my biggest fear, I know everyone's clapping right now, but my biggest fear is that as soon as people start using it, they're going to find errors and things they don't like, and then I'm going to get all this hate mail. So if you find things, please be kind. And one of the nice things about the e version is that I can make changes kind of on the fly. And so I'll try to keep up as things as we find errors, which inevitably we will.
Awesome. So let me ask you, like going back to your time as a student, what textbooks did you have and what impact did they make on your learning, both for the
Oh,
better and things that were not so good?
I guess, wow, when I think back to being a student, that's a long time ago, but I was one of those, maybe it's more common nowadays, but I never took a botany course in college, or even in graduate school. I never took an actual full general botany course. I was exposed to general biology, and plants were only given maybe a few days of attention. But I knew I loved plants, and so I had some private mentoring on the side. And then, of course, in grad school, I took upper level courses in plant anatomy and plant morphology and plant physiology. Um, so my exposure to general botany really became what was first when I became an assistant professor and had to teach every semester. And I played around with all of them. I mean, I explored all the different textbooks. There was a time when I felt Raven might be too advanced for some of my students. But I've kind of come around on that to thinking like, what's wrong with too much information? Like, there's never anything wrong with too much information. And my own philosophy on teaching probably I kind of think of myself more as a docent than a teacher. Like anybody could pick up a textbook in any subject and teach themselves, I suppose. But my job is there to guide them through this book and pull out the important parts. So in that sense, I kind of like the idea of giving students more than they might think they need, and then being the docent who helps guide them and pull out the most important parts.
That's awesome. Um, So, you've been at Wisconsin for a while and around a lot of the key authors. Like, was this a dream project that you hope to get to someday? Did you see this coming in your future, or was there a surprise
No,
element?
absolutely not at all. Ray Evert had already been retired, and I didn't interact with him a lot, but he knew that I took over that course and was teaching. And Rachel, you were my TA at
I
one time.
was, yeah, back at the beginning. Yep.
And so I guess he just knew that I also, my own background is that I had two graduate school advisors, Mark Chase, who taught me plant systematics and molecular systematics, but then also Bill Dickinson, who was a plant anatomist at Chapel Hill. And so I had a real wide botanical training, I guess. And then having moved around from the Smithsonian to Guilford College to New York Botanical Garden to Kew Gardens to Wisconsin, I basically, I'm not an expert in anything, but I feel like I have a good general, broad botanical knowledge. And Ray picked up on that. And he was getting up in age and decided that he wanted to find somebody to take over the text for the ninth edition. There were a lot of ups and downs. Honestly, the book is now 15 years out of date, and it's taken us a lot of time to get it to this point for various reasons, but it's here.
What an incredible accomplishment. How long did you work on this? Because like my own project took way more time than I ever thought. Like, what did
Yeah.
you think it would be, and then how did it
Well,
actually go?
it's good. I mentioned that it's a real team effort with the publisher. And initially, that was very intimidating. I mean, they set up a schedule for me with really hard, fast deadlines. And in retrospect, and if I fell behind on anything, I mean, they were on me. So in a way, having that team pushing was really helpful. But I basically spent some time every single day over the past year working on it. I mean, I'll just give you an example. At the beginning, you're just providing drafts of the chapters. But then by the end, I'm providing a first draft of chapter 30, a second draft of chapter 20. I'm doing the art proofs for chapter 12. I'm doing the e-book page proofs for chapter 6, and I'm doing the print page proof edits for chapter 3. And you're juggling all these balls. And then, I mean, even just 5 minutes, 10 minutes ago, I got an email from the art director. We need to replace the picture on the African savanna. We don't have rights to use that photo. Can you please help me find a replacement? So, so it's just kind of constant, but I kind of work well under pressure like that. Um, and yeah, it fit my schedule. So we got it done.
Cool. How did you work with illustrations, illustrators, photographs? What was that
Yeah,
process
so
like?
that's probably one of the most fun parts of the project, I think. I would go through and I would flag photos that I thought either needed replacing or updating or new photos that I wanted to be added or artwork to be added. So then I don't even know these people, but there's a woman named Cheryl. I think she's in Georgia. And there's an online platform, this tool that I go into and flag all those figures. And then she goes out and hunts for options. And these all have to be either open public source or she has to get permissions from the originals. Um, or if it's line art, I do a sketch. And then there's some kind of in-house team at Macmillan that I think they're using a lot of AI to tell you the truth. Because um, I said, believe it or not, there's not a picture of a flower with the parts labeled. Like you think that would have always been there, but it was missing. And so they sent me back this picture, and it looked like a really weird flower. I mean, the sepals and petals were, I don't know, funky. And I'm like, this looks like it was AI generated. You need to go back and change this. So that's all been very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, illustration is a big part of my project, but yeah, I can imagine that
Well, and the
there's
other
so
thing
many
is the
elements.
proofreaders are excellent. Like the
Yeah,
people they have, the editors who do the proofreading, I mean, they catch tiny little things that I would never have even noticed. But they don't necessarily have the botanical background. And so the figures and illustrations are what I really kind of went over with a fine-tooth comb because I don't know, I think the students probably focus as much on the figures and the art as they do the text. Um, and even making sure the figure captions got changed if the photo got replaced is tricky.
that's a lot of detail to keep up with. But
Yeah,
yeah, images are so critical to botany, I think, to botany teaching.
absolutely. We'll get to that
Speaking,
when we look at your book.
yeah, speaking of like, your role as an educator, like I mean, you've taught intrabody many different ways. What are some of the hardest areas to teach, and how might your book help in that area? And what are some of your favorite things to teach, and how does your book kind
Ooh.
of play with that joy?
I suppose we all would answer this more or less the same. Well, maybe not. For me, I've noticed over the years, the biggest challenge is getting students in the course to think beyond animals, beyond human. They're so zoocentric in everything as they come into the course. I mean, some of them don't even think plants are alive. They just think they're some kind of static object. And just trying to get them to understand that plants are doing everything that animals are doing, from reproduction to respiration to metabolism, and they're just doing it in a different way. And even the words, right? I mean, sometimes respiration to a student, they're thinking about breathing. That word means breathing to them. And then you have to try to explain to them that's not what we're talking about here. And transpiration is not perspiration. And right, so all of those kinds of things, and there's just these dogmas like animals take in oxygen, but plants only take in carbon dioxide. Just trying to break those stereotypes of the zoocentric mentality, I think, is the biggest challenge. The best way I find teaching, like I said, I use the textbook more as a supplement. And I know a lot of instructors have given up textbooks altogether. I still think there's a role there. And I'm going to go back to the example of being a docent because I was just thinking about this. So last week I went to Kew Gardens to attend the State of the World's Plants and Fungi Symposium. And on my free day, I toured the Tower of London, big tourist site, right? So I read a little bit in my Foder's guide and I looked at some online content. And then when I got there, they said, "Do you want the pamphlet? And do you want the audio guide, the audio guide?" So I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that." And then they said, "Oh, and one of the bee feeders is giving a personal guided tour at 2 o'clock." So I did all of those things. And what I realized was that if I only read the pamphlet, I'd get a basic knowledge of the Tower of London. The audio guide gave me more information. But then having that personal guide with the beefeater who was telling his own personal stories, he was weaving those into the historical buildings and context. That really brought it all to life. And so when I teach, I really try to bring in my own personal experiences or little side things that maybe aren't in the textbook. And one of the things we've done in Raven is to put little essays in each chapter that are kind of either of human interest, or more and more we're putting in things that are of environmental importance relating to climate change and plants' responses to the environment. There's definitely a very strong environmental climate change aspect to this new edition. It's not as much plants and people, and I know some folks have complained, like from the ethnobotanical side of things. There's one chapter on that, but rather than kind of weaving the human experience through the chapters, we're weaving more of the climate change environmental aspect through the book. So I think having those as kind of fun specialty things just makes it a little more interesting for the students.
Cool. Let's take it to maybe some questions from those assembled here. If you want to unmute or put it in the chat, let's maybe take 5 minutes or so for things you want to ask Ken.
There may be things in here already. I'm not watching the chat very well.
I'm going to try to watch it here. Let's see.
But please speak up, anybody, or raise your hand. Or
I have a question, Ken.
yeah.
So, I find that students have, I've been surprised on how many students don't even bother purchasing the textbook. Never mind reading it if they do. And so I'm just curious of like, have you figured out ways to get students to get those books open and read?
So I think I'm correct on this. When with Raven, which we use in our course at Wisconsin, it- we have opted to offer the electronic version through the Achieve platform that's built into Canvas, which is our operating system on campus. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that when a student registers, they actually don't have a choice. They automatically get the ebook and it's charged to their tuition bill or whatever. So I'm not sure if I like that. I mean, it does seem like we should give students some kind of a choice, but I believe that's the new mode is that once you register for the course, you automatically are charged for that ebook, and it's in there. Um, that's a whole nother topic if you think that's a good idea or not. But beyond that, let me think. I've never really had too much trouble with students not buying the book. Sometimes they'll come to me and say, I know you suggested the eighth edition. I have a copy of the sixth edition, or I got it at a used bookstore or something. Is that good enough? And I always say yes. It's more or less just kind of follow along, and it's not 100% the same, but that'll work for you. I generally try to keep costs down for students. Um, Otherwise, I guess you also, I'm sure you know this, John, that when if you just make recommended readings like in your syllabus, they probably won't do them. But if you say, tomorrow we're going to read these chapters and it's in the syllabus and it's written what page numbers, they're more likely to take that seriously. I also tend to pull a lot of figures out of the textbook and put them in my PowerPoint slides for my lectures. And so when the students see that, oh, this is figure 27-3 from the book, they realize, oh, maybe I should get the book because the PowerPoint slides are kind of corresponding with it. Uh, so maybe that's a way to do it.
So Joseph has a question online, and then we'll go to Stuart. Joseph asks, do you foresee this revised book for a 1 semester or a 2 semester course?
Ooh,
Which
that's
gets
a
to like,
really
how much can you jam into one class?
yeah, that's a really good question. So the way we teach general botany at Madison is 1 semester. It's 3 days a week, 3 lectures a week. It's 5 credits actually. And we have 2 instructors. So one of my colleagues who's a plant physiologist teaches the first half, and then I teach the second half. So we do manage to cram it all into 1 semester without too much difficulty, I don't think. Again, it's lectures 3 days a week. They have labs 2 days a week, and they have a discussion section once a week. So it's pretty intense. But you could very easily turn this into a 2 semester course. And that was one reason I switched up the chapter orders a bit, so that it was very heavy on cells, form and function, genetics early in the first half, and then diversity and ecology in the second. I could definitely see that happening. The other thing I talked to the publisher about, I teach a course in plant morphology. It's basically a survey of the plant kingdom. And Foster and Gifford's been out of print for so long. There's really just not a good textbook anymore for plant morphology or survey of the plant kingdom. So I really beefed up the chapters on lycophytes and on ferns and the gymnosperms, and I reorganized the angiosperm chapters with the idea that instructors who might want to teach a survey of the plant kingdom could actually just use the second half of Raven to teach that course. And I've even asked the publisher if there's a way we could package the ebook into like customized packages. So someone doesn't want to buy chapters 1 through 20. They just want chapters 21 through 32. And they said yes, that they have done that in the past with instructors who want to kind of, pick and choose and customize their own little course text out of the big text. So
That's
I think with,
awesome.
I mean, I don't know exactly how that would work, but it seems like it's doable to me. And I
Okay, let's
actually
have,
plan to do that.
yeah,
When I teach plant morphology next in spring, I'm going to use Raven for it. I think that'll be fine, those
that's
chapters.
going to cover a lot of markets there, right? For sure, with that, if you're able to do that approach. Let's have Stuart, and then we'll have Jen, and then we'll move on to my presentation. Go ahead and unmute, Stuart.
Hey, Ken, Rachel, thanks for having this. That was
Hey,
a nice presentation. Actually, I took over teaching a plant diversity class 16 years ago, um, and used Raven the first year, but we used such a tiny amount of it, and it was kind of outdated at that point, and it was very expensive. So students complained about it. So I've stopped using it and built up a bunch of other resources since then, and then it's for a variety of reasons, it's been turned into an online class built by a group here at UF. And my experience building the online class sounds very much like your experience dealing with publishers. That it's an extremely demanding process, and getting the images is
yeah.
very time consuming, and the text and all that. So I really it's a Herculean effort. Hats off to you. Uh, that's a long way introduction to saying that for our other intro bio classes, which I also participate in teaching, we use a Macmillan product. And that comes with an enormous amount of information for faculty. So a test bank, the now I'm blanking on the name of it, but the Inspire or
The Achieve.
the Achieve, yeah. So a whole bunch of associated
Hmm.
uh, extra add-ons and project-based assignments,
Yep.
and then a lot of lecture slides and extra learning material. And I'm wondering, do you have that built into your class
Yeah,
as well?
so I'm not responsible for that. They've contracted out other people to do those elements, but they will be there. I know that there's a lab manual, for example, and I was surprised to hear how many instructors around the world actually use the lab manual uh, that comes with it. So yeah, there's a slide bank, there's test bank, there's supplementary videos that instructors might want to use. Um, what else? Trying to remember. But yeah, all of those supplementary things are included. And some instruct I personally I don't use them, but I know other instructors do. So the publisher is really aware of that. We actually got into a, I hope no one from Macmillan is here. We got into a little bit of a tiff because I told them, I'm done with the book now. It's July. Like, let's just get it out there. People want it. They're desperate for it. And they said the main hang up is all of those extra items that you're talking about, that they have to put a lot more effort into those than I might realize. And so it's going to take several more months to build up all the ancillary materials. Stuart, while you're here, I just want to say one thing that I forgot to mention earlier. Um, I've tr since you work in paleobotany and bryophytes and so forth, um, I have really made it, I hope, a good effort to make this new edition less angiosperm centric. So I noticed that in all of the like the development chapters and talking about meristems and organs and so forth, it's always presented from the angiosperm exclusive perspective. And so I've really wiped all that out and tried to, I have a new figure, for example, of a apical mother cell of equisetum alongside the tunica corpus model of shoot apical meristem. So trying to make it more inclusive and diverse, and also not exclusively kind of United States focused, because there are many users in Australia and Europe, and I want examples from around the world. So we've tried as best we can to make it more inclusive.
Got a lot of emoji love for that, for sure.
I think that's really great. And actually one thing I will say about the other stuff that comes along with the textbook is students really, I think in my experience, like having the tie-ins. They like to recognize, oh, these are the slides that match the textbook,
Right.
know where this goes, and the questions come from the textbook, and I can find
Yep.
explainers. And I know people feel like it's stifling their creativity, but I do think that that sort of integration and alignment throughout the presentation and assessment process does really help students.
I do too. And in fact, usually at the end of the semester, when I get my evaluations back from students, a lot of them say they really liked the continuity and the predictability of the course. They don't like surprises too much. Like they want to know that tomorrow's lecture is going to include slides from this chapter, and they recognize those pictures, and it doesn't throw them off guard. And so, yeah, I agree with that.
I will say one other thing too that I have defined, and when the way I teach it, I've defined plants as anything that has a chloroplast. So I have kicked out fungi, but I've brought in malaria, which has a chloroplast,
Cool.
which I think is, I don't know, I enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. Thanks for your
Jen, what's
comments.
your question?
Just a quick question. Good morning, Ken and
Hi,
Rach. Thanks
Jen.
for holding this, and hi from New Zealand, everybody.
Yeah.
All right.
Great to hear that you've included some international representatives in the book. I'm super excited because we use Raven biology plants. We just started our winter semester here yesterday. So do you know, Ken, maybe you don't know, but will all of these resources in the book be available internationally? Is the same edition that you guys have put together there? Sometimes we get kind of an Australia, New Zealand edition of like the Campbell Biology book, but we really like to be using kind of the main one.
Yeah. I guess I don't know the answer to that. Exactly how what the publisher offers in different countries is sort of beyond my pay grade there. I would like to think it's all the same, but honestly, I don't know. The book has been translated into many different languages, some of them legally and some of them not. But and I don't know how it works in other countries, to be honest. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, that's all good. We'll just keep an eye out for it. But
But
yeah,
it's something
great to see you do this.
But if there's something I can pass along to the publisher, is it sounds like what you're saying is that at least in English speaking countries like New Zealand, you'd like all the same content that we get in the United States. More or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and there are cases like where with the Campbell Biology book they give more regional examples and stuff, but I
Oh, I
think it's
see what you
also
mean.
good from the student's perspective that there is a whole big world out there that they need to be exposed to. And so I like for them to be able to have
Right.
examples, globally.
Okay. No, thanks. I agree with you. Excellent.
Awesome. Well, I guess we'll move on to my
The
little
amazing
presentation.
Rachel. Tell us
Yay.
about your project, which is so exciting. And I don't know if Rachel's going to toot her own horn here, but I think she just won a big award for this Biology of Plants coloring textbook as like the premier educational innovation award in the state of Colorado. So congratulations, Rachel.
Thank
Tell us about
you.
this.
Okay, yes. Thanks so much. So I am a co-author with a student on a open educational resource college level textbook called the Biology of Plants Coloring Textbook. And truly, until I was really putting together this project with Ken, I was like, oh my God, people might think it's associated with his book. It's not. The name of the class I've been teaching at Colorado College is Biology of Plants. So that's where it came from. But here's the thing, it's an open educational resource. So anyone can download it, modify it, rename it, and make it their own. So yes. So yes, and Ken is right. This was the winner of the 2026 Exceptional OER by the Colorado Department of Higher Education. I'm really, really proud of that. And this is myself and my student, Madeline Broadhurst. This is a story of the magic of undergraduate liberal arts experiences. So Madeline was a student who was taking my Biology of Plants undergraduate class as their STEM breadth requirement. So our course has to serve both our STEM-minded students and not for their gen eds. And hers was a double major in English and art. Now, they first stood out to me because Madeline is from Memphis, and let's be more specific, Germantown, but I don't get that many students from Tennessee. So Madeline was like on my radar as someone I was excited about. But when I watched her doing her illustrations of slides, she was by far the most quick, accurate, prolific, and this is all done in like iPad in standard cool software. And I kind of realized that this might be the student I've always been waiting for, because I had been unsatisfied with the textbooks I'd had access to at Colorado College and had been kind of dreaming of an OER, but the illustration component was the reason I had told people for years I wouldn't do it, because I think botany teaching can be so fueled by images. So let me kind of back up a little bit. I'm a professor at Colorado College, and we teach on what's called the block plan. So every single class is 3.5 weeks, 18 days. So I'm covering all of intro botany in 18 days. And so I taught on semesters for years. I've done intro bio, intro botany many different ways. But students, I don't think, or it doesn't go well if we jam them full of content in that kind of a format. So we try to do fewer things deeper whenever possible. So I taught this class for many years, and we've been very cognizant of student complaints about the cost of STEM textbooks. As a department, that's been on our radar for a very long time. Our class, and some of my colleagues still do this, we have a classroom set of this roast plant biology book. It's very out of date. I swear we own every copy left in this world. If you have any you want to sell, some of my colleagues, we would loan them out for $10, and when you give it back, we'd give you $5. And these things are worked over, highlighted, missing pages. You can't access any online content. It never sat right with me. So then I switched to using the botany coloring book as sort of a main textbook along with a lab manual. I was also using in my PowerPoint all of the Raven Biology of Plants slides and images. So I kind of cobbled together this whole thing. A lot of our labs, we have kind of a standard set of botany labs that I bet a bunch of you do, with a lot of slides, particularly starting out. And students were given like a stack of white paper and get to drawing. And for some students, that works really well. But for other students, they got so confused about what was important for me as they were drawing lots and lots of cells, not knowing what they should really be focusing on. And when we're doing class 5 days a week, 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, if they get behind in their drawing or like too obsessed with detail that's not important, they can really get lost. So that's when I switched to the coloring book. The coloring book is great, but it had way too many terms for my students, and a lot of the terms didn't kind of match with what I was wanting to teach. So I wasn't really satisfied with all of this. So I decided to write an open educational resource. Now, this is not the first one for botany, I should say. There are a handful of other ones that exist out there. There's an open educational movement for resources that are zero or very, very low cost for students, and that they're depending on the licensure, which I'll talk to you about the license we went with. They are modifiable by instructors. And so I'm sure a lot of us are making teaching materials that sometimes we readily share with colleagues. You can kind of think of it as maybe a formal version of that. Someone else can modify your PowerPoints or your test bank. It's kind of like that, putting that out there. So Colorado as a state has been kind of a leader in funding OER initiatives across the state. There are no entire degrees at various other institutions, not at CC, but at other schools in the state that are 100% no textbook costs. And so there's been a lot of grant funding and initiatives to increase the number of OERs and the utility of OERs in many, many different types of classrooms. STEM certainly is one of the areas that's most highly targeted because of high textbook costs. So we got a new library director, and he was really excited about that and kind of released some money to incentivize faculty to do OER projects, which money was very enticing to me, I'll be honest, but it was kind of a project I'd been wanting to do anyways. Our college also supported my student Madeline as the illustrator for a summer on this. I truly thought this project was going to be just a fun summer project, that I could write this whole thing in one summer. I had a lab manual. I've taught this class a million times. I can show up cold and lecture the whole thing. I somehow thought that writing it would be just that fast, and it absolutely was not. It took a full year. This is kind of showing you the outline of the various units. Each one of these is something I cover in one day at Colorado College. So I hope this resource, which is fully published right now, you can download it, you can make it your own, is ready to go. And you can kind of see it's at some level is sort of following the classic, maybe the new updated Raven structure that Ken was talking about. So it is a mixture of both being a mini short form textbook. I tried to prioritize minimizing terminology whenever possible, which is hard in botany, but I have had students get so hung up on various terms, and especially when they don't align between the different resources I was using, I tried to be really, really cognizant of that. So it's a short form textbook, lab manual, and an interactive workbook. I worked on it piecemeal throughout the year, and nothing made me finish it faster than realizing I was teaching the class with no textbook. None was in the bookstore. We were just doing it. So I got about 2/3 of it done before the class started, and then I finished the final third while teaching, which was really intense. Luckily, I had a former student, Tori Barrow, who's now a graduate student at the New York Botanical Gardens, who was editing from a student's perspective. And then the amazing Dr. Emily Sessa at the New York Botanical Gardens edited the whole thing as a botanist. So that really gave me a lot of feelings that were very good about the text in particular. There was also, like Ken was talking about, a lot of editing of the figures. And so I had to go back and forth with Madeline a lot on figures. There were a lot of things that she emphasized as an artist that maybe were details that could trip up a student. And so there was a lot of that. And then there was the horrible time when we realized that her figures looked a lot like Raven Biology of Plants figures. And so we had to learn some about like copyright on images and making her life cycles and whatnot more distinctive. So she redid a lot of these figures over and over again, even though a lot of them are kind of classic, especially of slides, etc. So here's an example of like what one day's unit looks like. So this is like the third day of the class, plant tissues. We have some goals, and then sort of a minimal amount of text, and then it's referencing to these workbook figures. I do print this as a bound workbook for my students, which does impart a little bit of a cost, but in keeping with the OER idea, we're trying to keep it truly zero cost so that they get handed to them at the first day and they never spend any money on the class whatsoever. So then there's like coinciding workbook figures. This is a day where we don't have like an experiment. We're just going through some standard slides. And I bet a lot of you have done these drawings, know these slides, teach these slides. One thing that I really like that Madeline put in was pictures of the whole plant and kind of walk you down to where the slide actually is, which I have found has cut down on some of the, what is this? I'm so lost. I don't even know. It has elements of the botany coloring book where you can like label and color parts. There's some elements of adding your own drawings, but it's different than handing them a stack of white paper. And then I have some like writing elements kind of broken into it too. Just showing you some of the amazing artwork of my student. I mean, Madeline was really kind of the heart of this whole thing. And I can tell you for a fact, like this completely changed her life. She now has a job at the Denver Botanical Garden as an intern at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science and wants to get a graduate degree in museum studies. And none of that was on her radar till we did this project together. So that was really exciting. And she's really good, right? So here's an example of one of those life cycles that I hope we made different enough from Raven. So it's good, but these were all done originally by her. And there's no world in which I could have done anything like this or AI could have done anything like this. I think her stuff is what's really special here. So just kind of showing some of the fun stuff. Besides kind of a standard botany class, I end with a big celebration of the angiosperms. And we have kind of a edible dissection tea party where I want them learning the features of some of the major angiosperm families through making a salad as a lab table. So Madeline did all these very cute, just straight up coloring pages at the end, which was quite delightful. So I've used the textbook. People are downloading it now. Students are into it. They love that they're not paying for it. They like that real tight match between what I say in class, what's in my PowerPoint, and what's in the workbook. So no more of that stitching together of different things. It's very customized to me. And I think the biggest win for me was when we had a new professor take on using this book. And for her, you know, intro botany was a bit of a stretch. She's more of an animal biologist. So this was a big, scary class for her to take on. And she gave this lovely testimonial and said that this was an absolute game changer for her as a new professor. So one of my greatest dreams is that my work makes teaching intro botany, when you get to be a botanist, more accessible to more types of biologists, and that people can also customize this to what they need. So yeah, it's published. You can download it. One thing that I thought about a lot through this was the difference in career stage and security between myself and Madeline. I am completely fine with you modifying the text. The text has a Creative Commons licensure that allows you to adapt it to your own needs, add your own text. Please do credit us, but then you can make your own version of it. You can absolutely change the text, just don't sell it. But with Madeline starting out a career and who's very interested in maybe going into scientific illustration, we didn't want anyone modifying her work, her illustrations, or selling them. So we added a no derivatives. These are some of the OER types of licensures onto her drawing specifically. So there's actually like two versions of the OER listed on this website you can go to. And you can get just the text, or you can get the text with the illustrations. But we want people using it. We want people customizing it. And it's been really cool seeing we're now down in the hundreds of downloads that have been happening. And yeah, I'm really happy to have this out there and to share it with you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. It's so exciting. It's a really innovative and creative addition to the toolbox that we can use as instructors. I had a couple questions pre-written, but you answered many of them. So, but a couple things that I was wondering, like as you were describing this, I was thinking about journaling. Like that's become very popular now, and I know some instructors around the country even require some journaling during their courses. And I know that's not what you've created here, but you could do you think you could somehow like weave journaling into it as well?
That is a great point. There are writing prompts. So I have like little like call outs to do a little short writing on this, a couple sentences on this.
Okay.
And I think very easily, if you wanted to increase that pedagogical practice in your class, that would be an easy thing to do. I really want this thing to be a physical, tangible object that the student is interacting with often in real time in the classroom as well as like after hours. And then it's something they want to take with them that they're going to
Yeah.
be really proud of, like from college. Because honestly, our students aren't carrying on with physical things like a lot of us did. Like I'm still carting
Yeah.
around all my textbooks, right, from when I
Right.
was an undergrad. I don't know if they do that as much anymore. So I'm hoping that physical, tactile, interacting with the actual paper, and that can be writing, that can be coloring, that can be labeling, that can be drawing, that can be part of it.
Yeah. So someone could, for example, download it and then insert blank pages if they wanted to supplement, like write an essay on this or expand on that.
Absolutely. Yes. You can direct edit the text yourself and you can add pages. That's exactly the sort of like approach I hope people take with
Yeah.
it. I want to add more writing. I want to add these kinds of activities. Like, yep,
Right.
do it.
Right. Cool. No, I love that. I was also thinking about like when I teach plant morphology, I in the old days I required a drawing book, right? A sketchbook, and they had to do drawings. Then I dropped that because they were all just using their phones, but I've actually returned to it. So I actually buy them a blank sketchbook, and my TA checks at the end of each lab that they've done drawings. Do you do the same? Are you checking that they've colored? Like how much do they have to actually put color on the page?
Right.
Um, or is it more there if they want to fill in the color?
I think there's kind of options there, right? So I've told some students if you want to just straight draw and you've like been reflective and said, this is a good way for me to learn, do that instead of coloring. There are certain times it's a blank circle and they have no choice but to draw. Um, and then there's color and label for a lot of the images. So there's a lot of customization there. I do checks on workbook completion. And by me, I mean my TA. Let's be very clear who's doing that work. But yes, and it's easy-ish points to like incentivize them to keep up with the class. You know, it decreases the percentage that the exams count. It's got all of those good things. It's also a terrible thing to put off, like doing many pages of workbook if you're not keeping up with the class. So I'm trying to kind of force them to study daily and keep up with
Mhm.
things. But
Yeah.
yeah, straight drawing does it too. I just saw too many students get completely lost in what was important when left alone to draw with white paper. I've also
Yeah.
seen it be the very best thing. And that was me as an undergrad in plant anatomy. That was like the making of me as a botanist was drawing from scratch. But I've seen other students that just doesn't translate as well.
Yeah, it's almost like I don't know, like an art class where you start slowly and then by the end you know better how to draw or what to focus on and all of that. I could
Yeah, and
see
you could
how
co-teach with art instructors and really do that well too. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. You know, I was also thinking that in some of my classes, I have students who I guess would be called neurodivergent on different aspects of the scale. And some of them bring fidget spinners to lecture, but many of them actually I notice are doodling and drawing and focusing that way. Um, have you noticed students like that using the book as a way to focus? During class or like how do your neurodivergent students approach this?
I mean, I think my co-author would say she's of that community. And like the drawing that she was doing helped make this class accessible and interesting to her. Since the workbook, I think just having a lot of colored pencils around, because like that's what we just have, like everywhere is colored pencils, right? That in and of itself, whether you can go to the back to the like angiosperm diversity thing and just start coloring to help you listen or whatever. And then there's plenty of white space for drawing.
Right.
Yeah, I think having physical things around because yeah, our students sometimes they're not taking notes. They
Right.
might be on a laptop and getting distracted, and having physical paper that they're responsible for, I think can help with some of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like Colorado College has a pretty unique way of divvying up the school year into these blocks. I mean, that seems not typical to
No,
me.
we were the first in the world to do it, and we've been doing it for 52 years.
I
Yes.
went to a school that had 3 terms, which was also kind of weird. But how would I hate to use the word, average, but like, a typical big public university with 2 semesters and 15 weeks. Um, how would you recommend an instructor work this into their class curriculum? Would you suggest a traditional textbook and then this as a supplement alongside of it, together with a lab manual, or is one replacing the other? Like
That is a
how?
great question. I think you could use it as a outline for you to augment with where you want to add more depth. Um, I really thought it's ready to go if you want to do like a summer session or a January term session, because other semester schools often have things that look like our blocks. So I really like if you have to do a short form intro botany, hopefully this can be useful to you. I don't think it's enough just content for this. You could think of it more as a lab manual supplement to a deeper textbook like yours, I guess is what
Hmm.
I would say for semesters.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked through it carefully, but that's probably what I would do, I think.
Yeah.
I can definitely see doing that. Um, I was thinking about the future. So, do you imagine a revision or are you updating it or changing it on the
Well,
fly
yeah, these are the
or
things, right? Like the OER model is very different, right? Like
yeah.
anyone, if you don't like how I talked about alternation of generations, you are free to modify it and make your own version 100%. I will say in the first time I taught with it, students have some issues with Madeline's images and like where the focus was on it. But like Madeline's moved on in her life now. And so like asking her to do a whole nother round when there's no money involved,
Yeah.
it's like a different thing. And so I don't know. I don't want to like take advantage of her labor on that.
Sure.
And I just tell the students, well, it's better than drawing it yourself, or you're welcome to
Right.
do your own if you don't like that or it's too
What
small.
what about using this as the inspiration for spin-offs for I don't know, moths and butterflies or a course in or a more detailed course in only plant physiology that
I will say, like Jennifer Ackerfield and I have talked about like a field botany of Colorado kind of version.
yeah.
For me, the magic is really with that illustrator, right?
Yeah.
I think there's so much interest in OERs for many types of classes. I still love traditional textbooks. Like when I teach evolution, I'm doing that. Um, it was so much work. I don't feel like I have another one in me just yet. But I'm definitely paying attention to like the why of assigning textbooks
Yeah.
and thinking about how students are using them and how it hinders or helps the educational experience.
Hmm.
But both as an instructor and as a student, I deeply love traditional textbooks. Someone was talking about Campbell biology, like it saved my life as a new
Yeah.
professor constantly. And so, test banks, all that kind of stuff, like I'm not creating that. And the nice thing with the OER is I can turn it all out to you. Like if you want to change anything, by
Hmm.
all means. But I'm not at this moment going to, or I would do it when I'm like revising the whole class.
Yeah.
But I want a good
No,
couple of years of just enjoying it before I think about that, I
the
think.
customization
Yeah.
aspect and also just the affordability is
Yes.
greatly appreciated, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So there's a few, I see at least one question in the chat, but anybody, please feel free to
Yeah.
type a question
Well, maybe
or,
we'll do just one because I want to give people like time to chat together and create breakout rooms. So maybe like a
okay.
question for me.
So one question in the chat asks Rachel, is the hard copy of your book coil bound so that it can lay flat?
Yes, that is exactly how we get it bound with like a cover, coil bound, flat. Yep, that's how we do it. But the cost on that and who's paying for it, and like our bookstore doesn't print things, like these are some of the annoying realities of it. But I'm really trying to figure out ways to cover it as a department so it's truly a zero cost resource.
Another person says, this is an excellent resource. Thank you so much for sharing the link. I saw there are two separate links.
Right.
Can you
So one is
clarify
to
that?
the version with the illustrations, and one is to just the text. Right. And the illustrations, please do not modify or sell them. With the text, you can do whatever you want aside from selling it. You can modify the text, but please don't modify the illustrations. But the one with the illustrations is probably what a lot of people want.
Great. And somebody just downloaded it. So
Yay! My
thank
stats
you.
are going to go through the roof.
Yeah. So
I love it.
we've got a little over 15 minutes officially remaining. You had some questions you thought the group might be able to
Yeah.
kind
Yeah,
of
absolutely. We're going to
chat with
create, I
each
think, maybe like 3 random breakout rooms now for people to just chat with each other, share your experiences about teaching intro botany. How's it going? What have you seen over time? How has that changed? What have been the resources you've used? What's working? What do you need? How about that? And then we'll come back here in 10 minutes. There is a survey we're going to request people participate in. But again, seriously, thank you all so much for taking part. And we're going to open these breakout rooms now.
So you're going to get randomly assigned
Yeah.
into a breakout room.
Did you shuffle us around or you just closed it?
I gave everybody like a 1 minute closeout moment. Josh, are you going
Mine,
to Botany? Will I be seeing you there?
I am not. I've been going to the last several, I've been going to meetings so regularly
Yeah.
since the pandemic. I needed a break now that I'm not a president of something.
I respect it and get it. We'll miss you.
We had so many great things we were talking about in my group.
I know. We're finding community, right? And I think that's one of the really special things about these Botany 360s, right? Is to find your botany people during the year. I mean, that's kind of the dream of the Botany 360, right? Sorry to shut off prematurely any conversations, but I already made a new friend. I've got some ideas, so I'm excited.
One thing I got cut off when I was talking to Savan, and she's a new instructor and she's trying to get ideas for a new course that's coming up very soon. If I'm not mistaken, Lena Struve at Rutgers University helped to create something called the Botany Depot,
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken. It's called botanydepot.org or something.
yeah.
And there are lots of really creative ideas for botany courses and labs and online resources. And so for any new instructor, I would point you to the Botany Depot for inspiration.
I agree. That's a great landing page for all of that. We hope that someday the botany website for the BSA can be a kind of a great hub for a lot of resources. We're working on how to kind of cull through and curate some things that have been listed for a long time, but I think for now, Botany Depot is a great first place to look at. As we kind of finish up here, please fill out the survey in the link above that's in the chat for Botany 360. And we just, again, to mirror what Ken said about membership in the BSA, if participation in our society is a barrier because of cost, if you're a student or from many nations of the world, we offer gift or highly reduced memberships. Just email Amelia Neely, who's listed on the staff of the BSA, and we would be very happy to make it accessible for you to be part of our society. Hope to see some of you at our meeting in Tucson this year, if not Buffalo the next year. And thank you all so much for your participation and being part of our big group here. Big botanical love.
See you in Tucson. Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.